So the new MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense, yeah, is probably not gonna be what you think it is. Let's talk about it. So two things before I start. Number one, this was a blind buy. Number two, everything about fragrances is so subjective and is all about nuance. So make sure you watch the entire video to get a proper feel for MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense and if it's a good one for you or not. I will also answer some of your questions about the EDT Intense in this video. When it comes to the notes, we have Bergamot at the top, and Orange Blossom, Ambrofix and Patchouli at the heart of it, and White Musk at the base. So I probably worn MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense about 5 times so far, and right away in the opening, you can definitely feel that this is another MYSLF. You get a bit of that MYSLF freshness together with a bit of that signature MYSLF Orange Blossom. But I mean, right away, that freshness and the Orange Blossom sort of, in a way, feels a bit muted. And at least to my nose, its freshness is definitely not as intensely bright as the OG Eau de Parfum and as Le Absolu. And I also do not feel that the Orange Blossom of the Eau de Toilette Intense pops in the same way as it does in these two. So things move really fast with the EDT Intense, and in just like a few minutes you're getting this softly powdery and musky feel around the freshness and the Orange Blossom. And in a way you could call that softly powdery and musky feel a bit like dryer sheets, or when you put your nose to newly washed and dried clothes. The heart of it is also where I feel the EDT Intense starts to get slightly sweet. So at this point it's basically a combination of freshness, the florals, i.e. the Orange Blossom, and something that is softly powdery. Everything we got so far is definitely rounder, fuller, and a bit more noticeable. However, the dry down, at least on my skin, is definitely not an intense kind of scent. And the dry down is also where you can feel a bit of soft woodiness coming through as well. And sort of a simplified MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense, at least to my nose, is basically where you're getting a bit of the freshness from the Eau de Parfum, but a softer and less intensely bright version of it. You're also getting a bit of that signature MYSLF floral DNA. However, the Orange Blossom, much like the citrus in here, feels a bit toned down. The main twist to the Eau de Toilette Intense, at least to my nose, is the musk with its soft powderiness. So even though I've actually put quite a dent to it in a very short time, I haven't worn it that much while being out and about. But I do feel that the Eau de Toilette Intense is a very likable kind of scent, and it's basically, at least to my nose, like a toned down version of the other ones. I mean, all the other ones are very mass appealing men's fragrances, and I do feel this is also another mass appealing scent in the line. However, it all comes down to if someone can pick up on it or not. Which leads me to the performance. I mean, none of the MYSLF fragrances are super strong or beast mode in any way. However, this, at least on my skin, is the softest of them all. On my skin, MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense is more about an intimate scent cloud, and it's definitely not a long-lasting kind of scent. Fragrance performance will always be different from person to person. However, on my skin, MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense is basically around average, and I highly recommend to overspray with MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense. But even if you do not expect a loud and very noticeable kind of scent cloud. So let's go through some of your questions. I smelled it a few days ago, could barely smell on skin, maybe overspray. Yeah, definitely recommend overspraying this thing, but like I previously said, do not expect this to be beast mode even when you overspray. I would be especially interested in performance, and yeah, once again, this is definitely, at least on my skin, not a strong fragrance. So let's talk about the vibe here, and I guess the best way to describe the vibe is that this gives me, with its softness and that powder musk, gives me quite a cozy vibe. It definitely has a bit of that signature sexiness to it. However, I do feel this, with its softness, moves into something that is more on the cozy side of things. So let's move on to usage, so like seasons and occasions. When it comes to seasons, this basically behaves like the Eau de Parfum, but like a softer version of the Eau de Parfum. But I do feel this is another MYSLF that you can basically use throughout the year. When it comes to occasions, I do feel that MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense is the kind of scent that you can use to pretty much any occasion. But with that said, I gotta say that since this is quite a soft kind of scent, it's probably not a good choice when you really want to get noticed with your fragrance. But I do feel that this one works just as well for like a work, school, as it does for like intimate date nights. Let's take some of your questions. In which occasions could it be better than the Eau de Parfum? So when it comes comes to occasions, I do feel this and the Eau de Parfum are pretty much the same. However, this is basically for someone who wants something that sits closer to your skin. Is it good as a gym scent? To my knowledge, this is basically a combination of freshness, soft powderiness, and a softer version of that signature orange blossom. And I worn this on a warm summer day, and I do not feel it gets cloying with quite a bit of warmth. So this is an important part of this video. Who is MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense for? And here are my thoughts on this. If you usually absolutely love that MYSLF sort of a core DNA, then you most likely enjoy this. And if you think you would enjoy a softer version of that DNA with a less intensely bright kind of freshness and a less intense dose of that signature orange blossom, then this might be for you. But as long as you know that you also enjoy a bit of soft powderiness. So basically, in a nutshell, if the combination of freshness, orange blossom, and soft powderiness sounds good to you in a scent that is definitely not strong, then this might be a good choice for you. And the EDT Intense is basically for someone who wants a softer version, softer and powdery version of that DNA. And basically, if you don't like orange blossom and if you dislike any kind of powderiness in fragrances, then this is definitely not for you. So let's quickly go through some of the alternatives, and the main ones are obviously within the MYSLF line, and the most obvious one, at least to my nose, is the Eau de Parfum. And the Eau de Parfum is basically a combination of citrusy freshness. You have that signature orange blossom together with a bit of soft woodiness, and it's fresh, floral and woody in a more intense way than the EDT Intense. MYSLF L'Absolu is the next alternative, and this is also a combination of freshness, florals and woodiness. L'Absolu, much like the Eau de Parfum, is more intensely fresh and bright and also more floral than the EDT Intense. And comparing the Absolute to the Eau de Parfum, I do feel that the L'Absolu has a more nuanced kind of freshness to it, and its floral side is also a bit more nuanced and exciting. The Le Parfum takes a different approach to that signature orange blossom, and it basically combines that orange blossom with a prominent dose of sweet vanilla and a more prominent woody side. To my nose, the Le Parfum is a slightly warmer, definitely less fresh version of MYSLF that's more woody and sweet with vanilla. I highly recommend to check out my full comparison between MYSLF Eau de Parfum, the L'Absolu and the Le Parfum. I'm gonna link to that comparison somewhere up here in the pinned comment and in the description below. Time for one of your questions. How close is the smell to the Eau de Parfum? For that, I do recommend to go back where I compared it to. But with that said, I do feel the EDT Intense is the closest to the Eau de Parfum, but like a softer version of it that's also powdery. So what are my final thoughts on MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense, and how am I going to rate it from 1 to 10? So here's the thing. I'm a big fan of that core MYSLF scent DNA, and overall I do think that the line is a fantastic one. And very simplified, the Eau de Toilette Intense is basically, at least to my nose, like a toned down and less intensely fresh and bright version of the Eau de Parfum with the floral side that is also less intense than the original. And to my nose, the main twist to the Eau de Toilette Intense is its soft powderiness. And sometimes with some flankers, I actually think a more toned down version is a good thing. But, and this is a big one, I think they took that gorgeous signature freshness and toned it down a bit too much. And even more important than that, that signature orange blossom, at least to my nose, is toned down too much. I'm not sure the added powderiness to this makes up for the fact that they toned down too much of that signature DNA. I like it, but it's simply too soft on my skin. And to my nose, MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense is probably worth around 6.5 out of 10. It's definitely not bad, but I do not feel it's enough. Time for some of your questions. L'Absolu or this one? Come on, you kidding me? I would choose L'Absolu over EDT Intense for sure. Is it redundant to the original? So something being redundant or not is so subjective. But to me, this is definitely redundant to the original. Make sure you check out my full comparison over there and let me know in the comments how you feel about MYSLF Eau de Toilette Intense. Do you feel it's an absolute banger? Do you think it's mid, or do you think it's a bad release? Drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.